A, E, 1, short.
Hey there, this is Shadrach Reed, and you're listening to At Some Time, Somewhere at 81 Radio. I am first generation Jamaican American. As a kid, my mom was involved in the Caribbean gospel scene in like New York, along with two of my relatives. I have an uncle that was like a big name back in the day, Barrington Reed. And I also have a cousin who was like a big keyboardist back in the day as well, Rudy. So as a kid, like every single weekend, my mom would be emceeing, so these sort of like Caribbean gospel shows and events, and I would be there. Me and my brother, would be forced to be there, obviously, because what else are we gonna do? But yeah, always being surrounded by music, by like Caribbean gospel music as a kid, seeing like the live bands and just like seeing how wild, how like excited, how crazy things could get. From ever since I could remember, like live music was just built into my life. Like it was like a foregone conclusion. So eventually, around the time when it got to 10, I was like, Mom, I want to start playing guitar, just because that was like the instrument that kind of like really got me into it, or like that was the instrument that really inspired me. My dad used to play guitar, so I remember him getting me and my brothers like some random crappy toy guitars back when we were younger, and just listening on the radio as well, because my mom being in the church as like a pastor, rap and stuff like that wasn't like whatever. So really, I grew up like on a combination of like contemporary Christian music, adult contemporary, yeah, right. Like it's like, oh yeah, that's like kind of weird for like a black guy, especially like a Caribbean black guy, but I like grew up on that type of music. So when it came for me to decide, hey, I want to play guitar, like it was like a foregone conclusion, because I was hearing so much guitar driven music and whatever. So it was around the age of 10 or 11 where I decided that I want to do music, or at least I want to play guitar. It was a bit further like in towards late middle school where I'm like, I think I want to do this professionally, much to the bemusement of my mother. I was supposed to become a doctor, lawyer, astronaut. But I stayed firm in wanting to do music. And going into high school, I went to school in Williamsburg. And if you know anything about Williamsburg, these days it's kind of like a hot spot for like, music, live music, just like culture and stuff like that in general. I got to see Williamsburg get gentrified in real time, so that was fun. But seeing kind of like more like venues pop up and just like starting to meet people that like the same music I liked, rock, metal, stuff like that, and like being able to like communicate with them, being friends with them, working on playing music together and stuff like that. That kind of like really started to like, that was my training ground. Like the first performance that I had in front of a group of people was through like, high school rock band and stuff like that. So you know it was always like a uphill battle getting the permission or getting the blessing of my mom to kind of like be in this along with me. But she saw eventually how hard I was working, that I wouldn't let go of this. I got good grades, so if I got bad grades and I still wanted, I want to become a musician, she would have been like hell no, like straight up. But because I got like good grades, and I wasn't letting go of this, I gave her my plan. I'm like, okay, going into college, I know what I want to do. I'm going to study music industry. I'm going to study audio engineering, and I'm going to see where life takes me. So it was interesting, like freshman year, I, move into the dorms and stuff like that. It was the first time that I had white friends. And this is important. This is important because it was the first time that I heard of jam band music. Me being a black kid from like, New York, like like jam band music, like you don't hear that on the radio, like what is that? So as like a fellow guitarist, I started meeting a bunch of people who were like, yeah, I love Fish, I love the the I was gonna say The Walking Dead, no, but the Grateful Dead, the Grateful Dead, and I'm like, what are these bands? And like I would like hang out with friends, and they'll be just like starting to play music or starting to jam, and I had never done jamming before, so I was so out of my element when it came to kind of like just picking up a guitar and just like being able to flow and create music in real time. And my school had like a straight up jam band, like orchestra. I never did it because again, like when I was never very confident in my improvising skills, but through like experiencing like a new form of guitar driven music along with meeting friends or like people that were also into like the stuff I like straight out, kind of like rock, metal, stuff like that. That just like gave me the drive. I'm like, I want to put myself on the map, and I know that I'm not the best guitarist, but being around all these people, having the facilities to go and record something for free, I was like, okay, let me like give it my best shot. Like I have, great friends that love the same music I do. I have way better musicians surrounding me. If I could get them on a track, I create the bones, but then I have these people step in and make something greater out of it. It's like a win-win. So the culmination of that, of me kind of like, yeah, I'm around people that think the way I do. I'm around people that respect the same music I do. I'm feeling good about myself. The culmination of that was me releasing my first single, December 4th, my birthday, 2017, and that song is called Senpai Mitai, and it's the reason why it's called Senpai Mitai. That means like senpai in Japanese, and the song that I wrote, this song, was modeled after one of my favorite musicians and his, like one of his biggest singles called Senpai Please Notice Me. It's kind of like a semi-serious or semi-joking riff on kind of like, anime song tropes and stuff like that. But, this guy, C2A is his name. Me hearing that song, I'm like, oh my God, it's like all the things that I love in one. Great guitar-driven music, anime, and just like, yeah, basically that great guitar driven music and anime. So hearing that song, I'm like, I want to make music like this, and some way or the next I was able to kind of like create the bones of the song, of the guitar arrangement, and I was able to find a great drummer and bassist, at school to like lay down those tracks for me. And some way somehow I was able to like release my first single, and all my friends loved it. And that was kind of like the first time, like, wow, what I'm saying or what I want to do is actually coming into fruition, is actually coming to life. So that was right before I ended up going to Japan to study abroad, and that's where I really found not only my, because I feel like my musical identity was already set, probably from like middle of high school, late like high school, but in Japan I learned to expand on that identity, and I learned to kind of like love my personal identity as like a Jamaican American, as like an African American, as a black person. I studied abroad in Japan for a year, 2018, 2019. I come back home very much annoyed that I have to come back to America to finish up a degree that I didn't really care about at this point, just because I was riding high in Japan, playing shows, making friends, getting better at Japanese, whatever, all the works. So, I finished up school and like finally time to graduate come January 2020. Um, and yeah, I was feeling good. Like, it kind of started out with like heartbreak, with this whole big terrible romantic situation, but I was like, okay, even though that hurts, I'm starting to work at this like really cool studio. 2 weeks into my internship, I get fired. I didn't know it was possible to get fired from an internship, but I am living proof that that's the case. So yeah, that was kind of like a unfortunate situation to say the least. But come February 2020, I find internships at two different venues that have like, fairly big profiles. And I'm like, okay, finally, I lost that internship. I don't care about studios anymore, whatever. This girl still broke my heart. I could deal with that. But I'm starting to enter the music industry. I'm starting to do what I want. And then come, early March 2020, the world shuts down. And, the plans of me kind of like, going up the ranks, working for like venues, starting to make connections and starting to save up money to go back to Japan in later 2020, that all fell by the wayside. So here I am, broken heart, no immediate future prospects in my mom's house. And the only thing I could do was make music. So despite my career or like despite the immediate making money aspect of my career was out the window, within the space of the pandemic for the first 2 years, all the songs that I'm planning on releasing from now on were in some way written during the pandemic. I would say I am proud that I worked so hard to release them. Um, but I could only I could have only done so much with like basically no budget. And I'm always a work in progress when it comes to my own skills as a musician, as a producer. And for me, it was just a case of like I need to have some proof that I'm alive, that I did something. So, in spite of these songs not sounding the best sonically or not having the tightest playing or like whatnot, I released these songs in spite of that. And I look back with these songs as like, yeah, I'm like proud of the composition of these songs because there's nothing that anyone could take away from me when it comes to my confidence as a composer. I know good melodies. I like what I listen to. So what I listen to, I try to emulate, and I have a very good ear for what sounds good. So with these songs, I know they're not my best, but I see them as just kind of like setting the foundation that I can build upon, and that when people look back, they could be like, "Oh, like he's had such a big progression." So these songs, I'm proud of them because despite everything that could have gotten in the way of me releasing them, my own internal dialogue, the world falling apart, anything else, money issues and stuff like that, I was able to release these somehow, some way, and they are a testament to my perseverance. So for me, from 2020 up until 22, I was, working odd jobs. Early 22, I find this job working in music publishing. I knew going into it that I would hate it, but it was like, it's the best opportunity that's in front of me. It's what I studied. I'm not half, I could do it. And like, it like offers some sort of stability after 2.5 years of pure craziness. That stability eventually turned into boredom, which eventually turned to resentment at myself, at life, at God, at like whatever. And I basically had enough of doing the 9 to 5 and not making ends meet. The whole idea of going to college, the American dream, you go to college for 4 years, you get a good paying job, and you're able to sustain yourself. That wasn't the case. And I tried to fight for myself. I tried to advocate for myself and like, hey, I've been working here for a year now. Inflation's getting crazy. I'm doing so much work. I'm bringing money into the company's pockets. Can I have a raise to, help me live and help me not to do odd jobs like doing sound on the weekend or organizing one-off shows just to kind of like, survive? And the company said no. So I'm like, okay, it doesn't make sense that I'm like struggling to make ends meet, but I'm giving all this time and energy into a company that doesn't care about me. And I'm working for clients that don't know what the hell they're doing, even though they've been working in the industry for as long as I've been alive for. So I started thinking, why can't I be in the position that my clients are in, but yet have more knowledge and know what the hell I'm doing? like why? So I decided to quit that office job and go completely freelance. I've always been like a very personable, individual. So I've had like a big network of just like, friends, musicians, everywhere. So I was like, okay, let me capitalize on that network and let me go into full-time freelance booking. So for almost the past year and a half, I've been completely freelance booking, audio engineering, videography, camera stuff, wherever I could do that is creative and I don't have to be in an office, I will do that. So help me God. That is all culminating to me working on this really big, it's a fairly big festival. It's the first iteration of this festival. It's called 10 10 10, and it's organized, or it's being put together by this organization that I'm a part of called 10 10. It's like an arts, music, creatives, network organization headed by this one person called Ayaka May, and she basically onboarded me because of my skills in booking and knowing the music industry and working with musicians, with programming all of like the acts that will be performing throughout the two stages during the event. So, this has been a culmination of like the past almost year and a half of just like my network, working with like, crappy venues and individuals, knowing what kind of artists to steer clear of, knowing what artists I could trust to kind of like make sure that this event is successful. So all these different little individual parts or like all these skills that I've been training and refining and just working so hard to best use, they're all coming together for this one event, 10 10 10, that is happening later this month, later, like last week of August 2024. And we'll see how it goes. Like, I feel confident in my skills. I've done my best, and I'll be doing my best throughout the festival, because not only booking, I'll be doing live sound for both of the stages and just making sure, the show runs smoothly. So it's gonna be a lot of work, but I am proud of it. Um, I am looking forward to seeing what comes out of it. It'll be a nice sort of like thing that I could put on my resume and be like, hey, I was able to book out a 5,000 square foot space with all this great music. Hire me for your next event, sort of thing. But that it will be leading into me. Really transitioning back into like releasing music and like, I'm helping all these musicians. I feel like I've created a sort of like social network that can in turn help me, because I've been so altruistic with my time. And that sounds so prideful and so like, oh, like I'm a great guy. But just like, with me pivoting back into really pursuing my own personal interest when it comes to music, after this big event, for the rest of the year, going to be working on music, releasing it, and seeing where life takes me, seeing where these connections that I've made will ultimately take me. My end goal is working in the Japanese music industry as a musician, composer, producer, audio engineer, but also on the business side of things, helping Japanese artists that want to break through in America or want to do stuff in America, helping them, being their advocate, their ambassador to the American industry, and then vice versa, being the ambassador for American Western artists trying to come over to Japan and being their ambassador, their supporter, their liaison, whatever, being there to facilitate them finding success in Japan, and vice versa for Japanese artists going to America trying to find success in the American industry. But I basically want to do anything and everything creative, music wise, and beyond in Japan.
AE1 short.
At Sometimes Somewhere is produced by Audio-Technica for AT1 Radio. It is recorded at AT1 Studio at Technica House, New York. Follow AT1 Radio and Audio-Technica USA on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening.